This is the Violence Free World, and our special guest today is no other than Barrister Mike Ejiofor, a security consultant and public affairs commentator. Barrister Mike Ejiofor, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Now, 5 years of our president, he came on the ticket, especially with a promise to check insecurity and being a general. He's been president for 5 years now. Would you say the situation is any better than it was before he came on?
I don't think it's a yes or no answer. Nigerians were very anxious, expecting a magic wand in the background of his predecessor in office, who was a civilian, so to speak. And when he made promises that security was one of the most important points in his campaign, Nigerians were very expectant. And if you recall that the primary purpose of government, it shouldn't even be a campaign issue. The primary purpose of government is welfare and security of the people. And any government that has failed to do that is not fit to be called a government. Now, 5 years down the line, where have we seen ourselves? What situation were we and where are we up to now? You recall that when the president came, he directed that the service commanders should relocate to Northeast. That showed the seriousness of the security situation. But at times too, people make references to tell us that the situation was very bad. You recall how the election was conducted. The elections were held in Borno, in Adamawa, and all the Northeast states.
During the war.
During the war.
At wartime.
Yes. Elections were held, and if you recall that at that time, the government in power had to shift the election to enable stabilization in the polity in that to enable them to conduct the election. So I thought when people say that the situation is better now, we must be realistic. We are Nigerians who cannot politicize the security.
There must be a reason for why it is so, because a general leading the fight, supposedly from the front. I hear too of these issues of this thing having international infiltration. Now, you're very much aware of the presence of ISWAP in Nigeria here now. Boko Haram is not just that local thing or something that relates to just some African countries around here. Could that have complicated matters for our dear president?
Well, I don't think so. Terrorism, as a matter of fact, is a global war. No doubt about it. We know that these are global international war that is being on. You recall when Goodluck Jonathan posted some military commanders to the Northeast, how they were able to take control of some areas. And people were accused, some of them from the Southeast, Ejirika, for instance, and the rest of the family were accused of killing the people in the North. Now, when the president came, from his own prison, he also posted people he trusted that could help him. But the appointments were skewed to a particular geopolitical zone, which is making the fight even very difficult for us now. Because I was one of the people who came on air to say yes, but with somebody like Buratai coming to the Northeast, he's from Borno State, he knows the terrain, they can listen to him. But all those have come to naught. Because Buratai is a professional, a soldier of the soldiers. But what have we found? Where have we found ourselves? You see, there's a proverb in Benin. Just excuse my language. That when you go to the toilet and you stay there for too long, you see a fly with a coat. So you see, No matter how good you are, when you are on a particular position, you seem to be running out of ideas. It's time, long time ago, the government would have considered rejigging the security architecture. You see what is happening in the police. You see what is happening in the SSS. Because there have been changes. Anybody coming in there will want to bring in new ideas.
Now, you made reference to General Buratai, and recently I heard this talk of another onslaught on Boko Haram authorities. A fight I understood was led directly by the Chadian president Idris Deby. Now, some people say his experience or his pedigree as a soldier has helped a lot here. It's being brought to bear on the fight against the insurgency, and there's significant progress or result to show for that. Muhammadu Buhari is also a retired general. So these are two former commanders who had battle-tested generals, now leading their individual countries, and yet they're being embarrassed, challenged by ragtag armies, Boko Haram. Now, Idris Deby seemed to have been celebrated somehow. Why are we not celebrating our president? Must it be the same?
Unfortunately, there is no basis for comparison for many reasons.
How?
One, our president, a general, a retired general, is an old man. You don't expect him to handle matters the way the young person handle it. Two is the composition of the country. What is the size of Chad? How many soldiers do they have? What political considerations would you take in play? Would you take into consideration, political consideration, before taking any action? If Buhari, for instance, takes certain action that Deby took, he will be accused by Nigerians. That's why I continue to say that we cannot continue to play politics with our security. There's a lot of politics in our security. A lot of people are benefiting from what is going on. It's a franchise now.
Yes.
So the problem is that these are two extreme positions, Nigeria and Chad. There's no basis. Is it wealth? Is it population? Is it the economy? He can stand up and move to any place. Our president is an elderly person. We don't expect him to begin to junket and go to the war front. Even when he directed the commanders, the military commanders, did they go there to relocate? Were you not here when Inspector General, when he said he was not aware that the Inspector General of Police did not relocate to Benue when he directed that? So there are two extreme positions. Unfortunately, we cannot proceed more than this.
You're watching Violence Free World. The program continues after this time out. Welcome back. This is still Violence Free World, and our guest is Barrister Mike Ejiofor. Now, Barrister, it's been for several years now. There was Chibok girls, then Dapchi. And to this moment, I remember Lera Shaibu is still in captivity. Is this an albatross the Nigerian nation, or should I say President Muhammadu Buhari would like to get off his neck? Is this possible before he leaves?
Well, it's a very sad one, very unfortunate one, because of the configuration of Nigeria. You know, we are divided in political, ethnic, and religious lines. and the circumstances on which that girl was taken, and she refused to renounce that faith. So this, to that extent, this is an albatross to this government, and they must do everything possible to get the release of that girl. If they don't get her released, it's really albatross, and it's quite unfortunate. You recall that even the previous government also played politics with Chibok girls. They say it is politics, nobody took it serious until till now. Some of them are still missing. And we must be very careful treading on religious line in this country, because this is one thing that can destroy this country.
So the way you said that, are you implying that because she's a Christian, that's probably why
Of course.
she's still out there?
Of course, that was the reason given, that he was asked to renounce her faith and she refused to. And they decided to keep her and release the others. So that is the point I'm making, that government should look for a way out of this matter. Because as long as that girl remains there, it's, like you said in your own word, which I agree with entirely, it's an albatross to this government.
Interesting. Now, sir, there are certain elements that we believe are terror merchants, as in benefiting from the situation of violence in our country. For this kind of individuals, if the war stops, if banditry stops, if kidnapping stops, then there's a shortfall in revenue for them. I call it corporate conspiracy. What would be your reaction to this reality?
There's a time for everything. There's a time to die. There's a time to live. So those people who are trading on human blood, one day God will call them to come and account. If we as a country cannot call them to come and account, they will account for it. Definitely either in this world or hereafter.
Succinct. Do you believe the Amajiri system is a breeding ground for an army for insurgency or for the Boko Haram as it is presently? And the reaction now by the northern governors to suddenly put an end to it?
Well, that's a minus again for this government. You recall that the former government of President Goodluck Jonathan established the Amajiri school system. And if that had been pursued to its logical conclusion, then we will now have an enlightened youths or upcoming teenagers who can stand up and ask the elites what is happening. You know, in the north, for instance, they have been in power, controlling power, and yet you have the greatest number of people who are poor. What is the reason? Because the elites will continue to amass wealth while they feed them from the teenagers, they use the Amajiri from the little crumbs. So what is happening is that as long as these youths are not educated, one day, as long as they are not educated, they continue to be exploited. But once they're educated, one day they will rise up to ask the elites to give account of their stewardship.
We're talking violence.
Now, as we grant towards the hut, let's see, is this another plus for the government of Muhammadu Buhari that there's so much clamored for state police is about to happen, as in providing the enabling environment for vigilantes, Amotekuns, Hisbah, and the rest of them to begin to thrive, and then elevating it to a discourse towards state police. Are we about to see state police
Well,
now?
that's a very interesting one, because I have been an advocate of the state police. The police, the Nigerian police as it's structured now, will never perform. No matter the kind of person you bring, no matter how intelligent, how efficient that man is, like the current IG of the police, I've never met him. But I believe he's doing the best he can. But with this present structure, there's nothing he can do. So we need to create the state police. He has come up with the idea of community policing. Community policing, for God's sake, has been in existence. What is community policing? It is not the involvement of members of the community who did that in my place, form vigilante to check the menace of headers in my place. And it's giving positive results. But we will not stop there. We should go forward to formalize and create constitutionally the state police. That's the only way some of these security challenges that we're facing can be solved.
Okay, finally, your words to the House of Youth watching the program today, young people watching you right now. They see violent people become successful, honored in the society, revered, and they're the ones doing the right thing. Yet, you're out there constantly telling them to be law-abiding, to be people of good conscience, and the rest of them. What would be your advice to them?
Well, my advice is that it's not even to the youths, to our elders. Because when the elders set good examples, then the youths will follow. Our elders have disappointed us. And the youths who have also found themselves in position of power have not helped matter. They're even worse. So what we are saying, what I am advising is that we should look at our values, change our attitudes. Somebody is giving an appointment today, everybody is congratulating him. Why are you congratulating him? To serve. Is it why you should go and congratulate people? But because they are not out there to serve, and because of our own orientation, our culture, where you are expected to patronize your extended families, your friends, and obviously, it becomes difficult. So, one, the youth to be patient. Government should make basic provisions like housing, health. When you get all these things, for God's sake, you don't need to set up EFCC to fight corruption. You don't need to set on any institutional body to fight corruption. Who is not corrupt in Nigeria? I challenge that person who says it's not corrupt. Somebody on 18,000 naira or 30 as it is now, which some people have not paid. You are living in a house of 450,000 naira. How do you account for it? So as long as government has failed to provide for the basic necessities, the youth will continue to be deviant. So our government should formulate policies and we should change our values, our attitudes. People should fear God. Because if you don't fear God, you can do anything.
Well, Professor Ejiofor, I think that's a very, very good point to leave it. I must say I enjoyed every bit of what happened today. You've been most incisive. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for being a wonderful host or guest here, because I'm in your place.
So you stay safe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I've been talking to Mike Ejiofor, a security consultant and public affairs analyst. My name is Kale Ikpe. Same time next week promises even a better edition. Until then, please remain on the road to a violence-free Nigeria. Thank you for watching.
No more to